Welcome back to another episode of Welcome to the Pig Leagues. Radio broadcaster Pat McCarthy here, along with 2019 Iron Pig, 2019 Philly Phil Gosselin. Phil, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Pat.
So how have you been right now? I mean, I know it's a crazy time. You were in big league camp, and the articles that have come out, you were one of the first ones to find out what was going on when you had a conversation with one of the umpires. So take us back to those last couple of hours and how surreal they were.
It was crazy. I mean, even when we were taking BP that day, we had seen that, I think the night before was the NBA got canceled. And then they were slowly canceling all the college basketball, like the Big East or ACC. A few of them started to get canceled. So we kind of figured it was coming.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't even know if we were going to play that day. But we started the game with fans. And then, I went in the fifth inning, I think, to play the back half. And I was talking to third base umpire, and he said, yeah, this is it. I think the umpires huddle up and they found out. They said, yeah, this is the last game of spring. We don't know how long the delay is going to be, but this is it, at least for a little while.
So then the next couple of days after that, did you stay in Clearwater, or what was kind of like an exit plan for you guys?
I think I stayed there for like 3 more days maybe. I think the next day we had a meeting. I think it was a Friday. Kind of just was we'll see kind of thing. They didn't have much info for us yet. And then we were going to reconvene. I think it was Sunday, and they moved it back up to Saturday because they're like, hey, do whatever you guys want. We're going to have the facility open, at least for small groups at that point. They didn't shut everything down yet, but it was kind of clear that most of the guys wanted to get home, be with their families. And they made it clear, you're not going to hold against anybody. If you leave, you should go be with your loved ones. And it felt like every day that just worse news was coming out. So I left that weekend, came up here to Asheville, and didn't think it was going to be, turn into months. It's probably going to be. I thought it was going to be a couple weeks maybe, but it's obviously a lot worse than anybody thought at first.
Well, your girlfriend's on the front line of things right now. How is she doing with everything being in the hospital?
She's good. She's healthy, knock on wood, helping out, doing everything she can. So definitely been cool to see it. And down in Tennessee, they've done a good job here. The cases haven't been too bad, and hopefully it stays that way.
How have you been able to stay busy? I mean, you go from spring training where you're working 10 days, 10 hours a day for 7 days a week, and then to go really back to nothing. How have you been staying busy with everything?
It's weird. I mean, I haven't not played baseball this time of year literally my whole life, so it's been weird. I usually hit, throw, do all that kind of stuff in the mornings. Got a local high school around here that we found. I've been with Adam Duvall with the Braves and Jacob Stallings from the Pirates. So the three of us we're trying to keep it small groups, the three of us hit and do all that stuff together. And then in the afternoons, work out, do yoga, whatever I can, limited equipment and stuff like that. So you kind of have to be creative and do different types of workouts. But luckily the weather's been nice down here, so I've been able to get outside, and I feel like I'm in a good spot whenever we do get the green light to go ahead.
Do you play in Nashville at all? Were you ever in the PCL, or have you strictly been in the IL?
I played like 3 weeks in the PCL. I played 1 game here as a visitor. I played for Round Rock when I was with the Rangers, and I came here, played in the new stadium here, which is beautiful.
Well, for people that haven't been to Nashville, what is a normal time in Nashville like? I mean, it's one of my favorite cities I've ever been to. I mean, do you have a go-to spot on Broadway that you like to hang out on?
My favorite spot on Broadway is probably Tootsie's. It's like the most famous one.
Yeah.
That's probably my favorite spot, but you can't really go wrong. Live music's awesome anywhere along there. A lot of good bars, a lot of good music. It's really fun. It's weird right now when you go down there because it's just dead. Everything's closed. So it's definitely weird, but it's an awesome city. If anybody out there's never been, just check it out.
What about food-wise? I mean, Nashville's got everything you could possibly eat. What's your go-to restaurant down there?
I mean, if you're looking for barbecue, Martin's is probably my favorite. If you've been there, Husk is a really good restaurant. They did a thing on Netflix on the chef there. He opened a restaurant in Charleston. I forget the name there, but then he opened a restaurant here, which is awesome. It's all like locally grown food, and that's probably my favorite, more like upscale place I've been here.
I feel like when I was down in Nashville, I ate more nachos than anything else in the entire world. But a lot of potato chip nachos, I noticed. There's not a ton of like tortilla chip nachos. A lot of like Irish style nachos. I know the FGL House had like a pulled pork nachos that I think I ate like 3 times when I was down there.
I haven't noticed that. That's weird. I don't think I've ever eaten a potato chip one. I haven't seen that.
Yeah.
But then there's the Nashville hot chicken, which is famous too, which is really good. I'm not kind of a wimp with that. I can't go too hot, but I do like it a couple times I've had it.
Have you been to Milk and Honey? That's one of my the favorite breakfast spots that I've ever been to anywhere across the country.
I've never been. I actually live fairly close to there, and I've been by it, but I haven't been yet. So I'll have to check it out once everything opens back up here. Hopefully, not too far from now.
Well, you got to get there about an hour before you wanted to, because the line is out the door. You can go over there or go to Biscuit Love, which is right around the corner.
Yeah. Yeah, Biscuit Love in there. There's always crazy lines, so I haven't been in yet, but it's on my list.
All right, so let's talk about the T-shirt. Just a kid from Westchester, Malvern Prep, of course, growing up. What was life growing up in the Philadelphia area? I mean, you grow up in Westchester and, go to Malvern, but then you go down to Charlottesville for West Virginia, drafted by the Braves. So you've kind of been all over the spectrum in terms of the East Coast. But growing up in Philadelphia, what was it like for you?
It was awesome. I mean, it was all sports. I've lived down in Mississippi when I played down there, and it's funny because it's all college sports there. But growing up around Philly was really just all the pro teams. I loved all the teams: Phillies, Eagles, Sixers, Flyers. Didn't matter. And then a little bit of Big Five basketball too, because my dad loved that. From when he was growing up, that was a really big deal, and I loved basketball. So those are I loved it all really. Which is probably why I've played sports my whole life and got involved at a young age. So it was really cool growing up around there. And now, being on the other side of it, I never thought I'd play professionally. Never thought I'd play professionally in Philly. So it's been a dream come true for sure. It's still one of those things that, it'll probably sink in even more once I'm done playing. But it's been awesome.
I was going to ask you about the Big Five, because outside of our area, not many people appreciate Philadelphia basketball. Was there a specific Big Five team that you rooted for growing up?
So my sister went to Villanova and my brother went to St. Joe's. So
Okay.
I rooted for both of them. I remember when, St. Joe's had that amazing year and John Lucas hit that three to beat him in the Elite Eight. I remember being devastated. I don't remember how old I was, probably like 10 or something, but I remember being devastated about that. So I always liked all the teams, but I guess St. Joe's and Nova, just even though they're rivals, because my brother and sister went there.
So I was at that game, and so at that point I was probably 7, and every once in a while, when I really want to punish myself, I will go back and watch that game. And CBS did all those, rewatched all those old games when this all first started, and they had the Elite Eight game on against Oklahoma State. And it was the first time that my dad and I had gotten a chance to sit down and watch it together. And to this day, I think if Jameer takes that shot 9 times out of 10, he probably makes it. And St. Joe's goes to the Final Four.
And then it was, even with John Lucas's shot, it was like, I think it was Pat Carroll was like, an inch from tipping it.
Yeah.
It's kind of a weird broken play. And it's kind of the one break they didn't get that year after having an unbelievable year. I thought they were going to win that. And, who knows what would happen in the Final Four. But that was one of the funner teams I remember watching as a kid. And I was all in.
Yeah, I think that if anybody hasn't gotten a chance to see a basketball game at the Palestra, it's one of the most surreal and unbelievable atmospheres across all of college basketball. I personally feel that every Big Five game should be played at the Palestra, just because of the energy that goes into that building. Have you seen a couple of games at the Palestra?
Yeah, I've been to the Palestra. I was living in Philly probably like 5 or 6 off seasons ago now, and one of my buddies from UVA was living with me who plays professionally as well. So we were working out and doing everything in Philly, and I was like, dude, I got to take you to the Palestra. So we went. It was Penn Temple, I believe, was the game. And he's not from around Philly, but even he appreciated the history and everything like that. So I agree with you. I know Phil Martelli, when he was at St. Joe's, I think they played all their games at the Palestra because he felt the same way. So I'm all in on that. I love going to games there.
Yeah, I'd seen last year I did a game it was St. Joe's at Villanova at the Pavilion, just as the Pavilion had been renovated. And it was still a really cool atmosphere. But then I got a chance to call St. Joe's Penn at the Palestra for a St. Joe's home game, which is obviously different than for an average Penn home game. But, people look at the Ivy League, they think Penn, how great can that basketball be? But you see what Penn did in the Big Five 2 years ago running the table. I mean, it's been Villanova for the most part. Villanova wins the 2 national championships. Were you following that the entire way? I know you're obviously a big Cavs guy with UVA and stuff, but were you still pulling for the Cats when they were making their run?
Yeah, I think the first one they won was 15 or 16?
Mm-hmm,
That's the
16,
first one they won? Yeah, so I was 16. I was in Arizona I remember we had a Monday night game with about 4 people in the stands. I don't remember who we were playing, but not many people there. And I remember hearing like screams from the box level while the game was going on, and I didn't know what happened at the time. And then once our game finished up, I remember going in and watching it,
Mhm.
and that was just unbelievable. But I do remember where I was when they won that first one.
That's interesting. You think about that because being on the West Coast, that game had already gone final when you guys were still playing. So I was a
Right.
junior in college. It's one of those events that, I mean, obviously being a St. Joe's fan, it wasn't great seeing Villanova win, but, I still love when Philly wins. It's one of those shots that you really
Mm-hmm.
will remember where you
For
were
sure.
at any point. Another sporting event that I know for 99.9% of Philadelphia fans is the Super Bowl, that they remember where they were. Do you remember where you were when the Birds won
Mm-hmm.
the Super Bowl?
Oh yeah, I was in Arizona for that as well.
Mhm.
I wish I would have been back in Philly, but I was living in Arizona then because I think I wasn't with the Diamondbacks anymore, but I was still living out
Mhm.
there just because it's a good place to train and everything. So my buddy Archie Bradley threw a Super Bowl party, and I was the only one there who really cared either way. So they all jumped on the Eagles bandwagon, and we had a great time. Awesome, I'll never forget it. And they all threw me in the pool when they won because I was going crazy, and that was probably my best memory as a fan for sure. Because the Eagles are my number one team. Just besides the Phillies, I'm on the team, but as a fan, the Eagles are my number one.
Do you remember one of those first moments when you experienced what it's like to be a Philadelphia fan firsthand?
Um, the Iverson days were good for me. I remember like '01. I guess I would have been 12 or 13. And when they made that run, I remember that vividly, just how unbelievable Iverson was and captivated the whole city. So that was probably because when I was younger, the teams weren't that good. The Phillies weren't that good at that point. Eagles were. That was right when Andy Reid got there, so they were starting to get good. So those that first run with the Sixers was probably the one as a kid that I'll always remember and kind of hooked me.
The decision comes that you're a free agent this offseason. Phillies come back and say, "Would you like to re-sign with us?" Was it a no-brainer from the beginning that this is where you wanted to be back to if the opportunity was there?
It was always probably the leader in the clubhouse,
Mhm.
but I definitely, was interested in seeing what else was out there. I had some other teams interested, but it was definitely going to take a lot to pull me away from Philadelphia area. Obviously I want to be in the big leagues, but if I was in AAA this year, then I'm close to home.
Right.
Lehigh's awesome. I love playing there and all that. So it was, all things equal, it was definitely where I wanted to be compared to anywhere else. So I was pumped to be back for spring training this year, and hopefully we'll get going again at some point.
You've played there now as a member of the Phillies, but do you remember your first time going back to Citizens Bank Park as a visitor? What was that experience like? Do you remember how many people you had in the stands?
Yeah, I was there in, I guess it would have been 2014. I think it was the last series of the year. I was with Atlanta. Um, it was at least the tickets I left. I probably left like 8 or 10, just because my brother, my sister, my parents, and then
Mhm.
my brother and sister are both married, and they've got, I don't know, at the time they have 6 kids between them now. I forget how many at that time, but left tickets for all them, and then I had a lot of other people that were just in the stands too. So it was really cool. I got to play there. Never got to in high school. I always missed it by one game at the Carpenter Cup.
Mm.
We lost, I think, my last 2 years before I got to play there. So I do remember that, and just kind of going running out to the field and kind of just looking around, and you're trying to stay in the moment because you want to play well, but you want to soak it in, and like, wow, I've watched a bunch of games here. I've watched a million games on TV of them, and now I'm out here with. At that point, they still had Utley and
Yeah.
Howard and all those guys too, who were the my favorite players growing up.
What Carpenter Cup team would you have been on?
I graduated in '07, so it would have been '06 and then '07. My junior and senior
Mhm.
years, I was on it.
What team was that? Like which area?
Oh, the Interact.
Interact.
Yeah, it was like Interact/Independent. So we had some
Mhm.
other schools in there, but it was mostly Interact kids.
So you go to Malvern Prep, you go to UVA. What was your time left like in Charlottesville? I mean, is it similar to what you expected going into it being such a big name school?
It was better, honestly.
Mhm.
We were on the rise when I got there. The team the year before I got there, they were really, really good, and they ended up losing. I think in the regionals, and they had some injuries and stuff. But you could see that it was close.
Mhm.
So I went there. I thought I was good in high school, but you don't really know. You go and play against all these kids that from southern states that play a lot more than I did, and you're never really sure. But luckily, the coaches gave me a chance. I stepped in and played right away. And after that first fall, I kind of had the feeling of, I can play with these guys. They're not, I'm just as good as them. And then being the first school my sophomore year, or first team in school history my sophomore year to make the World Series was awesome. I met a ton of guys. I still talk to, a ton of the guys from the teams there, still some of my closest friends. I played a lot. We won. So, I mean, it was everything I could have hoped for and more.
Well, we talked to Hayes the other day about his time in Omaha and what it was like. What about for you? What was Omaha like for you when you experienced it?
It was awesome. I played in the old stadium. It's a little different than his experience, and he won one, so his was probably a little better too. But it was crazy. I remember LSU taking over the whole thing. They ended up winning it. They had 1 million fans, walking around like the little warehouse area in Omaha, just taking in the whole city and seeing how the city embraces the whole. Like that's their those couple weeks is everything to them. So they really embrace the World Series, and I haven't had any other experiences like that. And some ways you look back at some of those college games and they're just as good, if not better, than some of the the big league experiences you have. Just because you're young, you don't know any better, and you're just having fun with your buddies.
You're fortunate enough now to play for your hometown team, but first 3 quarters of your career, you were traveling around with different organizations. When you got back home when the season ended, what was your go-to restaurant, either in Philadelphia or when you got back home to Westchester?
I grew up, there's a place called Peppermill right near my parents' house. It's my favorite cheesesteak to this day. We grew up, that's where we went. So always right away cheesesteak from there whenever I got back home. That's an easy one.
Well, that was my next question. Is the simple answer for everybody is always just Pat's or Geno's. But if you're from the Philadelphia area, you tend to stay away from those, and you have your own little personal favorite within the city itself. Within Philadelphia, do you have a personal favorite?
I've been to Steve's a lot. Steve's is pretty good. I know a lot of people say D'Alessandro's. I need to go there. I've never had that. But just for growing up, I always went to Peppermill as my spot. But within the city, I'd probably say Steve's is the one I've had the most.
Has there been a favorite park to play in as a visitor, and then as a favorite home park as well?
Favorite visiting park, Wrigley for sure.
Yeah,
easy one for me. When I started, the first couple times I went there was when they were starting to get good. So the atmosphere was awesome. Their team was really good. I love the weekend day games. It's just like a party around Wrigley. Like they're all going nuts. So Wrigley's by far my number one. I love Fenway, but for whatever reason, Wrigley. It's a lot different now too. I played before they did all the renovations, so now it's really nice underneath.
Yeah.
Before it was not very nice. If you're coming in off the bench, you don't have much room to get loose. That's probably my favorite one. And then, I mean, we'll throw Phillies out just because it's my favorite home one, just because of all the nostalgia and I'm from there. But I really liked Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's the backdrop's beautiful. That backdrop's about as pretty a picture as you can have. So I enjoy playing there a lot too.
Have you been to every park yet, or is there still a park that you would like to get a chance to play in?
I've got the whole NL. I've got the whole AL West. And the Central, I haven't been to Detroit. Where else? I haven't been to Chicago White Sox. I haven't been to Tampa. I haven't been to the Yankee Stadium. I played the Yankees like 4 times, but every time I played them at home, which stinks. I want to play there. And maybe one other. But I've got pretty much all of them at this point. I'm missing like 4 or 5.
Well, Phil, one more question before I let you go. What is the one thing that you are looking forward to more than anything for baseball season to get back to playing?
Just being back with the guys. I mean, it's cliche, everybody says it, but when you're in the locker room with the guys, it's like a family, and there's nothing like it. It's I know guys when they're done, they say you can't duplicate it. It's true. I think you appreciate it right now. It's nice being around your family and cherishing that time, but there's nothing like being in the locker room with the guys. So definitely looking forward to seeing everybody, and whenever that time comes, hopefully sooner than later, but we'll see how it shakes out.
Well, Phil, I appreciate you taking the time and joining us. Be safe. Hope your girlfriend's doing well as well, and we appreciate everything she is doing to help us during this time. But thanks so much for everything.
All right, thanks, Pat.
Another episode of Welcome to the Pig Leagues with Phil Gosselin. I'm Pat McCarthy saying so long. Thanks so much for listening. and we'll talk to you on the next episode.